The Journal of Combat Sports Medicine. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, there's a journal for that? Apparently. Ringside physicians have called for less head injuries in sparring. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, doctor. That's a brilliant idea. I got to tell you guys, it's always one of these tough things. And your initials and your titles and your standing in life are always going to work. There's no way around this. I was on a phone call one time. Commission had invited me on, and it was a bunch of doctors, and it had to do with weight cutting and dehydration. Now, I knew going in that what I say has absolutely no bearing unless what I say happens to meet the opinion that has already been reached by the doctors. Like, there's never going to be a time where a commission, and quite frankly, anybody, is going to listen to an athlete over a doctor. And in all fairness, I'm not either. If I'm speaking of medical opinion, for obvious reasons, I'm going with the doctor over that of a lowly cage fighter. In this particular instance of dehydration is a rarity. I've written a book on dehydration, but I also come from the only field on the face of the planet where you must weigh in before you go do your job, where you not only learn to dehydrate, you learn the tricks of dehydration, and you learn how to rehydrate. There is no medical school and there is no doctor anywhere that is going to have a better frame of reference than that. In fairness, now they hated that. That was insulting to them. And I'm trying to level and ease them into this going, oh, guys, please listen to me. You've never had to get on a scale before you were allowed to go to work. As a matter of fact, you don't know anybody that has. And being dehydrated is an art. It is a skill. You will seldom, I told the doctors this, very politely, by the way, you will seldomly ever meet anybody that's dehydrated. You will think they are. You will diagnose them as dehydrated. You're seldomly going to meet anyone that's dehydrated because how would have they gotten that way? Unless we're talking about a person stranded in the desert, you're going to go to the water fountain. You're going to go to the sink. You're going to have something to drink. It's very hard to become dehydrated. It is wildly uncomfortable. Have you guys ever done a workout just in a gym, air-conditioned gym, but you break a sweat? You know that feeling you have like, man, I got to get something to drink. That's over a pound and a half of dehydration. We're talking about 11 and 15 and 17 pounds. Okay, this is what I am an expert in. I only brought this to the doctors. I said, guys, this was hot and heavy in our sport for a while there. Now, that topic has died down. People have become calloused. They've kind of began to accept what happened or what is happening. But we're still seeing people fainting on the scale. We're still seeing people pass out. We're seeing people who have made weight, who have had to go to the hospital and had to miss the match the next day. That just happened with my buddy, Vinny. Just happened to Vinny with it 7 or 8 weeks ago. Real thing. We're still seeing it. Nothing has changed in the sport, but the phenomenon of commission stepping in and stopping it has largely gone away. Now, when I was on this call, I shared with the doctors, we don't have to sit around and discuss this if you want to stop dehydration, because instead of guessing and hypothesizing and putting procedures in place, which may or may not work, we can just copy somebody who's already effectively stopped it, which is the NCAA in the year of 1998. 3 wrestlers died cutting weight. Had never happened before in any sport. And there's only, again, 2 sports that do it: boxing, wrestling. Now, of course, this mixed martial arts, which is a combination of the 2, sure, they do it too. Nobody had ever died. And one of the wrestlers was in a sauna at the time. The other 2 were out running, but they had what we call plastics on. They had passed away. Now, upon further review, they all had one thing in common, which was the use of a very popular supplement in that particular year of 1998 called creatine. So they were trying to tie a connection between the creatine, but wrestling couldn't wait for these things to happen. It had to change instantly, or the NCAA was going to pull it, make it illegal, and you're done. So wrestling steps in one day with no talk, no experts, they didn't have any time to waste. They had to do it tonight. So they did it tonight in one day. The leadership of wrestling got together, and here's how they ended weight cutting. They changed the competition to a 1-hour weigh-in. What that means is you weigh in, and 1 hour later, you're on the mat. Nobody can compete dehydrated. You can't sleep. You can't even have a conversation on the. You are miserable dehydrated. Nobody can compete dehydrated, so everybody bumped up a weight. Some guys moved up 2 weight classes, but now they can weigh in and they can walk out on the mat. The NCAA put a couple of other criteria in there, but that was the big one. It did away with weight cutting. MMA, which is a 24-hour weigh-in, which means in a worst-case scenario, you will weigh in and you have 24 hours before you compete. Now, we all know that they weigh in between 9 and 11 a.m. now. They don't start the event till the following day at 3:45. That's when the first guy walks. And the last guy can walk as late as 10 o'clock. So not only is it a 24-hour weigh-in, you're talking about 36 and 37 hours. Fine. But that's enough time to rehydrate and recuperate, which still gives the incentive and allows athletes to pull out this water weight. Largely an American phenomenon. Largely. If you were to go and look at the people who have fainted, by the way, or you have looked at the people who have missed weight from dehydration, or if you look at the people that made weight and ended up in a hospital after the fact and couldn't compete, you're going to find largely they were all American or living or training in America. It's a very much an American phenomenon. Like I met wrestlers from Iran, from Cuba, from Russia. They just don't do that. Couple of kilos, which is about 4.5 pounds. Fully hydrated, everything's great. You had breakfast, you had lunch, you feel wonderful, and you're only couple of kilos over. It's an American thing. So NCAA did this, never had a problem again. Not only was nobody died, nobody was hospitalized. Nobody was sick. Oh, and guess what else? You want the real catch, guys? Nobody missed weight. Now, I'm talking about specifically the NCAA tournament, but even under NCAA regulations, I could not produce a name for you. I would trust from 1998 till now with the thousands upon thousands of sanctioned matches that happened that somebody has missed weight. But you want to know something? Literal? I don't know who it was. I've never heard of it. It just wasn't an issue. It just wasn't a part of the sport. It was a protocol where you put them on the scale, but everybody weighs the same and everybody competes at what they weigh. So I was offering this to this group of doctors. I was just offering, this has already happened. You don't have to get a think tank out. You don't have to have a bunch of doctors that largely do not know what you're talking about or what you're referring to or what an athlete does. They don't know about water loads. They don't know about the sodium manipulation. They don't understand saunas and baths. They just don't. And that's okay. It's not an insult. Let me tell you what happened and has already happened. And by the way, the team of wrestlers and coaches and leaders that came up with it in 1998 did it in one day. They got on a conference call. In one day, they came up with a plan that 23 years later proved to be a perfect plan. But in MMA, you got to get this think tank together and they all walk around. They all got to talk and they got to talk about talking. They got to have meetings. And they got to talk to other people. Now they have to talk to the other people. They don't really care what a guy like me would have to offer if I don't have an MD next to my name. And I could hear their voices. I could hear their tones. I could hear how put out they were. And I don't know why. I certainly didn't insult them. I just shared as the one guy on this call who is an expert in dehydration. Let me share with you how we could also stop dehydration from happening. Nothing happened. But now apparently there's a journal of sports contact, and the ringside physicians have determined taking less brain trauma in practice could be a good thing. Impressive, Doc.